Good late afternoon, everybody who is still left. I have the honor to close this session day and the whole presentations of the 3 days. Yeah, so first of all, my name is Jürgen, and I represent a company called Axinom. And what we are doing is we help companies build OTT platforms, both for on-demand and live content. And our specialty is deeply in content management and digital rights management, but we always try to help our customers as much as possible and provide them consultancy also in other fields. And so today we are going to talk about live TV, because I think it's definitely a very interesting topic, and I hope it will be also useful for you. So, I think the first question would be, is all live TV already OTT? And I guess most of you know the answer. Of course, it's not the case. Maybe one thing I would like to know, who of you is today doing OTT live streaming? Not IPTV, but OTT live streaming in any form. Two gentlemen over there. Who is planning to do live streaming over OTT in the next 12 months? Okay, fair enough. So, as you saw, only 2 persons out of the whole audience are doing live TV OTT today, so there clearly is still undiscovered market for this area. Does it make sense to do it OTT? I think the short answer is definitely yes. Of course, if you are already a big established broadcaster, or if you have a service which has hundreds or thousands live channels available, yeah, it might be a bit longer transition period for you, but I think there are so many companies who might start with 1 or 2 or 5 channels, and I think for such companies, OTT is a very great way to get started lean, without huge initial investments, to get out to the audience, and what is most important, to get in front of audience around the world. And that's why we're talking about live TV in global platforms, because the borders are gone. Okay, so not everybody is yet doing live TV over the top, and we think that it makes sense to do it. So what should be the next steps? I won't be able in this 15 minutes to bring you an overview of a full OTT platform for live TV or go into deep details, but what I would like to bring out are maybe some of the key considerations which you should take into account when you either have currently only a VOD service and you want to add live TV capacity, or you don't have any platform using OTT as of today, but you're thinking about starting either small or also big. Okay, so for all of those who are doing already VOD but want to add live, or have only experience with VOD, what are some of the differences that you should take into account? The things that I'm going to list here are not exclusive to live TV, but I think once you start doing live distribution, some of those considerations, they have bigger impact, or you need to up your game compared to maybe to some VOD services. So the very first thing that you need to think about is scalability, because let's say when you have an on-demand service, then the growth of the service can be probably more predicted, and the chance of having unexpected, tenfold or hundredfold growth in 1 hour is probably less likely. But once you have a live platform, then it can easily happen that even for some event or for some show where you don't quite predict, you will have unexpectedly huge user interest, and well, once you're already into that event, it is late to think about, oh damn, I should have added more capacity, or I should have made the platform more scalable, because then you're probably losing customers already. So that needs to be thought about well in advance while you're still in the architecture phase of your whole platform for live delivery. And that brings me to the next point, which is failure is not an option. So when you're doing on-demand, then of course, every time user has to reload the page or there is buffering, it is also not nice, for sure. But when we talk about live, then you have 10 million viewers watching, and at the highlight of a football match, your screen all their screens go blank for 5 minutes. This is something that you don't come out of that. You will have huge business impact after such occurrence. So failure for live TV is not an option. Quality and availability. So you have to think really how you're going to measure the quality of your service. Again, for live TV, it can be more challenging. You have to follow everything in real time, and as told, you can have unexpected user behavior, you can have higher than expected load on your system, so forth. So that needs to be thought through very well, how you're going to ensure the quality and availability of your service for those live events. Also, when you're doing only live, but I think nowadays the customers, especially when you do linear TV, but also events, they expect to have a chance to catch up, record their favorite shows so that they can watch it at the time when they prefer. And this is again something that if you don't think about those services in advance while building your platform, they can be quite difficult to add afterwards. So even if you don't plan to launch initially with, for example, catch-up TV or a personal video recorder in the cloud, then at least you should already architecture and plan it in advance and choose the technologies and the services which can add these capabilities easily later. And of course, latency is something that you can't come over. Latency in VOD is, of course, you want your users to start streaming as soon as possible, and you want to offer them a good experience. But latency in live TV gets a whole new dimension. So again, if you're doing linear TV, then okay, I guess it doesn't make so much sense. You don't have to really go for low latency. You don't need to have sub-second latency, to deliver some kind of soap opera episode or something. But when we're talking about live events like sports or breaking news sessions, then this is something where you have to think about low latency. I think one of the things that people don't maybe understand fully yet is that low latency, first of all, needs cooperation of all the different components in your delivery chain, from the ingest, from encoding, to packaging, to CDN, to the player. And all these components need to be able to do low latency. And also I think maybe people don't get that actually it can be quite noticeable additional cost. So you have to think if for your business case it is crucial that you do low latency. And what is low latency for you? Maybe it's enough if it's 3, 4, 5 seconds, then you're already good. But of course there are services where you want to go below a second, and then you have to think into consideration what is the investment and if it's justified for your business purposes. So, the architecture. I think one of the questions that comes up quite often is, okay, can I do nowadays everything already in cloud, or should I still consider on-premise? I think this is something where it again depends a lot. So if you're already, for example, an established broadcaster, you have your own huge infrastructure, you have lots of encoders and packagers on-premise. Or if you want to really distribute hundreds or thousands of channels, then at least, yes, for the encoding part, it may still make a lot of sense to do it on your premises, and then maybe to the packaging, encryption, and that part in cloud. But if you're starting with just a few channels, then I think nowadays it's definitely super easy to get started online. It takes you a little time to put your first proof of concept up and also get some user feedback from your real users. One of the things also that I think is interesting here, especially when you have already a bigger system, is competitive redundancy, which means that all your components are at every point of time distributing content to at least 2 other components. So from the encoding, you have 2 encoders you send to 2 different packagers from both encoders, and from 2 different packages you send to 2 different origins, for example, at the same time, so that you really don't have a single point of failure. And when there is an issue in one of the pieces of the delivery chain, then it can fall back to second or the third backup component of that part of the delivery chain. And I think this is something that you should really put a lot of focus on, so that everything is redundant and built up redundant in a smart way. Extensibility, so as told in the beginning, like you may start with some simpler service, so you just offer straight live, but you may want to add things like catch-up or network PVR in later stages, so you should already take that into consideration. Yes, also in terms of maybe business models, maybe you start with, I don't know, pay-per-view, and then you want to add some subscription models, so your platform should allow to do that. Also modularity, so that in case you need, you can easily exchange components when you notice problems in either encoding phase or in packaging or in the CDN part or something, then you have the chance, to switch out components without too much impact on your whole service, how fast you can get back live. I think that's important to make sure that your system and architecture is modular, also making use today, if you're cloud-based, making use of things like containers, microservices, functions, and so forth. And maintainability, so how to ensure that when you need to exchange something in the system, if you want to improve, if you want to deploy new versions, how easily you can do that, and at the same time making sure that, as told, you have this continuous feed going out to the customers so that there is no interruption in your delivery. Also, one thing that nowadays probably is already kind of common sense is, especially when you're doing global delivery, you want to ensure that you're using a multi-CDN approach, because different CDNs have different strengths regarding their regions, and you want to be able to deliver the best quality in each region, and that also economically the best option in each region. And also you will want to have the fallback in case your main CDN, for example, should for some reason fail, or if you are putting the throughput limits into test of one CDN provider for some region, then you have an additional option available which can carry the extra load, which was maybe not foreseen. Also, one interesting thing that often comes up, and I have also had a few discussions during the last days, is the peer-to-peer thing. And it's somehow it seems that especially bigger players are somehow afraid of peer-to-peer technologies, but actually, at least to me, they sound pretty promising, especially when we talk about reducing the load on the CDN and reducing the CDN costs. So it depends again on the content. Maybe you want to deliver, if it's premium football match, maybe you don't still trust the peer-to-peer technology, but for many cases, actually, it can help you, especially in the areas where maybe the network coverage is poorer, or the CDNs are not so much present, like let's say some parts of Asia or Africa, and you want to do something there. Then I think peer-to-peer technologies actually may really help you to get to the users more reliably and help you to reduce the network usage significantly. So I think it's worth to consider those technologies here. So we have a little image also. It's super simple in that sense. You may have a lot more components here, but that's kind of how an OTT platform, including live TV, could look like. So you have the live stream coming in, going to the encoder, which can be then on-premise or already in the cloud. You have the packager, and which goes then to the catch-up service, because you want to continuously create also the catch-up asset, and for that, it needs to be all together. You have also incoming the metadata and the EPG data for the streams, which goes to the CMS component, so that if you want, you can adjust some parts of the metadata or the EPG, and you can easily push the updates to the end users. Then you have the backend interfaces component, which then takes care of the serving the feeds to the end user devices, and also taking care of things like payments, entitlement, and the recommendations even. Why not? Yes, you see there is also of course advertisement server if you're doing ad-based business models, and other things like payment gateways, analytics. Yes, and you may have also then DRM on the picture. If it's premium content, you may need that. And then of course, yes, CDN. Yeah. That's kind of how it looks on a high level. So, what should be part of your platform? What you should think about? First of all, of course, automation, to automate as many things as you can. So how the streams are initiated, how the metadata is ingested, how some of the things are done regarding, the catch-up, the network PVR. So to have as little manual work there going on as possible. I think today there are lots of nice technologies and ways to automate. You should have really good analytics, of course. Again, that's not specific to live TV, but something that you really have to consider to have clear understanding who is watching what, where, and also that you can provide good feedback to your content owners, content providers, those who are advertising on your platform. Good analytics is always important. Also, monitoring for live is especially tricky in that sense, or where you need to again put a lot of focus, because having the knowledge that something failed, so the end user didn't see the video, doesn't help you much. You really need to understand where was the problem. Was it in the encoding phase, or was it even before the encoding? Was it problem from the production to your encoding? Was it problem in the packaging? Was it problem with your DRM service provider? Was it player that was failing? So you need to really be able to monitor each component also separately and then end to end, and have also detailed logs about everything going on in your setup, so that later when something should go wrong, you can clearly go back and see, okay, that was the component at that moment that caused this black screen on the end user device in the end. And what was also the reach, right? Was it for one user? Was it for 50% of your users, or was it for everybody? Protection, so yeah, of course, I will later talk a little bit more about security part also, but yeah, definitely protection of your content is something that, again, you should take into account, and your platform should enable you to use different technologies like DRM, like watermarking, potentially also active web crawling and so on, which help you to protect the content, to fill your commitments to the content providers. Monetization, again, needs to be flexible. You should think about different ways what you can do. So of course, probably one of the biggest monetization ways is still advertising here, or pay-per-view. So if we talk about monetization through ads, you should think about dynamic ad insertion, because nowadays it is a lot easier to do really directed advertising to your users. You can build up, you can already, based on the user profile, pre-cache, for example, the advertising for the next ad break, so that your network doesn't get a huge load on your ad service during the break. So there are a lot of opportunities how you can make this more seamless, this monetization. And yes, if you want to switch your business models, or if you want to add new ones, that the platform enables you to do that. And also, definitely you need to be able to take care of licensing. So especially for live, again, if you do it globally, you may have the need for blackouts for certain regions, for certain content. You must be able to do geo-blocking, so that in some areas the content is not available, and it must be, again, very flexible, that you can easily have overview of what you can license where, and that it automatically, all those rules are enforced at the right time, so that you don't break the contracts with your content providers. Okay, automation. So yeah, artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is something that you can't escape from. Also, when we're talking about live TV, and I think there are quite many nice new ways or new tools which help you to do the live streaming better with the help of computers. So metadata generation. So if we talk about, for example, the catch-up service, then you can get the content of the catch-up assets automatically transcribed or described what is in the catch-up asset, and that is automatically added to the metadata. And so it is instantly available also through the recommendations to all the viewers. So I think that is really great way to make use of artificial intelligence. One thing that sounds also interesting to me is in the on-demand area, we make use, of course, of per-title encoding already, and it's coming together quite quickly, but I think we could do the same thing also for live streaming. So you could look through the APG and see, okay, the next thing will be a cartoon, you need lower bit rates there, and then after that there is some action movie, you want to put more bit rates in there, so you could again save bandwidth and make the network usage more effective. Or also clipping, so you could create automatically, the highlights of the events. If it's a sporting event, automatically the system helps you to generate a quick overview, 5 minutes of the most important things that happened in that game, so you can get a quick overview and nobody has to do it manually. And of course, multi-language, really, if you want to do it globally, you want to have the people understanding what is going on there, and nowadays it's already working quite well also for live, that you can really, in real time, generate the subtitles and you can translate them to multiple languages, giving you access to many different markets at the same time. And lastly, very quickly, also security considerations. So there are a few things you can do. One of them is DRM, of course, which is required more and more by, for example, premium sports leagues or also as the premium other premium content providers. So DRM, of course, is a passive technology in the sense that you apply the encryption, but it doesn't do much actively to prevent piracy. So you should also consider other technologies in addition, for example, like watermarking, because whilst DRM, for example, helps you prevent the resharing and protects there, then if you want to later actually identify who was resharing or to understand where the leakage was coming from, then that's something where you need to apply watermarking. Also, what you may want to do then is device management, so that you don't allow one account to stream more than, for example, on 1 or 2 or 3 devices. And we think that if you want to do really great device management, you need to also incorporate DRM there, so real-time license expirations and so on, that it's much more difficult to tweak. And then lastly, of course, also another active piracy prevention method is like active web crawling. So again, here is something where AI and machine learning can help you a lot to go through, the most popular sites where the links to pirated streams are shared, and to bring them to your attention, so you can automatically also submit takedown notices. And you may also add some human component there, in those regions which are the most popular pirated sites. So yeah, you can go there and actively during the event take down the stream, because after the match is over, it doesn't matter anymore, right? You have already lost your customers who otherwise would have paid to you. They just got it for free or cheaper somewhere else. Okay, so in conclusion, I would say that I think we have seen already what OTT has done to on-demand content, and I think it's only now growing tendency also for live to go OTT. It gives so many content creators a chance to get in front of people around the world without barriers, and I think we should give those content creators in our platforms a place where they can get their content distributed. Getting started with live TV is easier than ever. As told, you can start small and with small investment and get the first glimpse of what it is like to run live TV services, and then you can already scale it. And the infrastructure and everything else is coming along also nicely. So, with that, I close this today's last session about live TV in global platforms. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions, then I will be here next to the stage. Please come by or visit Axinom booth, which is like 10 meters that way. We will be happy to tell you any further details if you have interest there. Thank you.
We'll be right back.